Good evening. I share Kevin McCarthy's love of languages. It's always been very interesting to me. When I was in high school, I studied French, Spanish, and Latin, and in college, more Spanish. And I speak a pretty good brand of Spanish for a white boy. So that worked out really well for me when I was an OBGYN resident because we had a lot of patients from Central and South America, and we could communicate more easily in a potentially terrifying situation for some folks. One of the group of languages that I really didn't get into was Asian languages. And every once in a while, we would have someone from Southeast Asia that would come in with a pregnancy and laboring and so forth. And they generally I didn't speak their language, they didn't speak mine. We had the translator line where we could call somebody up and say, look, will you ask them this, and pass the receiver back and forth, very cumbersome. But anyway, that's how we dealt with it. This one particular day, a young lady came in, as I said, and I've heard people say, why is all this hoopla going on about labor and delivery? I mean, cops deliver babies. Taxi guys deliver babies. People deliver babies by themselves. And I agree. It's a beautiful process. It's a very well thought out process that goes very, very well most of the time. But when it doesn't, things can get very, very bad very, very fast. Okay? So this lady showed up with her family, 8 or 9 of them, her husband, and the obvious matriarch of the family, who was about this tall and looked to be about 107 years old. And it was obvious she was in charge because everybody was very deferential to her. When she said something, people turned to, got water for the lady that was in labor, fixed her pillows, fixed her sheets, and so on and so forth. Unfortunately, she was one of these people that things started to go very, very badly, very, very fast. So I explained to the husband, who was the only one in the room that spoke English, and it was just a few phrases and a few words and very heavily accented. I said, look, we need to deliver the baby now. Right now, the baby was asphyxiating, and we needed to get it out. And we didn't have time for it to happen the old-fashioned way. So I had to try to explain to this guy that we were going to deliver the baby by C-section. So I said, we got to get the baby out. What? Got to get the baby out. Got to get the baby. He's in trouble. Huh? We got to cut the baby out. Okay. So he tells Granny this. She says, gives the assent. Take him away. Okay. So we take her across to our C-section room. Once anesthesia is established, 2 or 3 quick cuts, 12 to 15 seconds, baby's out, limp, blue, not making any noise at all, handed off to the people that can do what they do the best, is resuscitate babies. And for a seemingly unending period of time, there was no noise coming, and we're working along, putting things back together the way God had intended them, and all of a sudden the kid starts crying. Music to our ears. Okay, fine. So mom gets transferred to the recovery room. I go in to tell everybody what's going on, tell the husband, the baby's fine, your wife's fine, everybody's fine. And he tells Granny that, and Granny asks him something. He says to me in his sing-song, nasally sort of voice, Doctor Abaga. What? I said, I'm sorry, what? And once again, Doctor Abaga. I said, man, I'm really sorry, but I don't understand what you're saying. He says, baby, abaga. I said, oh, is it a boy or a girl? Yeah. I don't know. He turns to Granny and says, I guess he doesn't know. She ever so slowly turns her head and looks up at me with a look that didn't require any interpretation. It was something along the lines of, we let this knucklehead cut on our loved one, and he can't even tell us what the sex of the baby is? And I said, I'm gonna go and find out. So I go and find out, and the loudest screaming kid in the newborn nursery is this beautiful baby girl. So I come back and say, you know what? Congratulations. You have a baby daughter. She's lovely. Everything's fine. He tells Granny. Granny kind of grabs my arm and starts patting and looking at me like, you stick with this, buddy, and maybe one of these days you'll be able to tell if it's a boy or a girl. So I learned a very valuable lesson that day, and it was, if you want to maintain any kind of cred with people, figure out the sex of the baby before you show up and tell them how things went. Thanks.